Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to be talking about greenhouse watering for the winter time. I was asked how I water all these plants for the winter time, and I must say for the most part I water them very carefully. Now there's a couple different methods that I use. Of course I have the sink in the greenhouse here, so I have this little method that I call the tray method. You can see a bunch of square pots here in a 10 by 20 tray. I switched everything to square pots, or I am slowly switching everything because you can hold more in less space. So I always, if I'm doing the flush method, take them to the sink here and make sure my water is not too hot, not too cold, just sort of lukewarm, room temperature. And occasionally I will give them a good flush like this. And I just let the water drain out into the sink below. So we'll do that. I'm just making sure the water is the right temperature. And the plants do appreciate this. This is with orchids and with carnivorous plants that I do this with. And it really gives them a good flush. If you look down here, you can even see the water, maybe you'll be able to see that, is a little bit tinted from the tannins that are in there. You can see down sort of by the drain, it'll be clearing up shortly, that the water's got a little bit of yellow tint to it. So from my nepenthes, I spray like this until the yellow goes away. I think it just got darker there for a second. Now I don't fertilize these plants, and I've actually tested that yellow tinted water with the tannins, and it has very, very little TDS in, no total dissolved solids for these plants whatsoever. But I give them a good wash like this. Sometimes I'll do this with orchids as well, but orchids don't like to have their leaves as wet. I'm going to zoom you back out here. So when I do it with orchids, I am going to just show you here. I have one little section left over, and I wanted to show you guys this interesting fact too. These are 4-inch round pots as opposed to 4-inch square pots, and this is why I don't use round pots, because if I push that one in there I can fit it right to the back, and you can see from this whole tray that it's 3 rows thick. And if I push this one right in here, I can fit it in and push it to the back, but I cannot get my third plant in there whatsoever. There's no chance of fitting 3 4-inch pots in this space. It just doesn't fit. Simply does not fit at all. So what I will have to do is I'll take this guy out for now because I'm sure I can wedge it in there. For orchids, I'm a little bit more careful with the water. You can just do this with them, but then you can see it gathers in the crown there. So I want to avoid that. So I take my jet and I turn my jet down, and I will do this with them. And I still just let it drain, and this one's now blocking all of them. So I just do this, and I try not to get into this crown at all. So you can see where my finger is up at the top of the screen. Want to avoid water in there because it will rot in the winter time. So I will water them like this. And if the sink like this, I will give them a very thorough water, and just let the water kind of run through. Now, it's quite humid in here. I don't need to do this very often, and I probably only bring the orchids over to the sink when they're really dry, like I've missed them for a while, and then I give them a good soaking like this. But normally I take the hose with me because this would be just simply too time consuming to bring all the plants over to the sink like this. So why don't we go over to the orchids in the warmer area and set up there for a second. Okay, first I want to show you this shelf here because I cleared a little space on it, and I have got a layer of vinyl on my shelf. And while the space is clear, I like to give it a wipe off. I use clear vinyl for a couple reasons. One is because the light will transfer down to the shelf below as long as you keep it clean. So you're not making a big shaded area for these other ones below. As long as there's not a pot on it, light will transfer through. The other thing that this vinyl is good for on my shelves is water will not drip down. It is like a roof over my plants below. So if you can see here, these plants here won't get wet when I water these plants up here. And it is like that on every shelf. The water of course has to go somewhere, and it usually tends to pool and end up spilling off in 1 or 2 general areas onto the floor of course. But let me just, how do you want to do this? I'm going to back you up, and lower you down a bit. So there are a bunch of orchids there, and I'm going to go grab my hose because I wasn't able to bring that with me when I brought you in there. So I'll be right back. It is still adjusted just to the jet setting that we left it on, and that is perfectly fine. So when I'm over here, I just take my hose, I make sure this is on the low setting, not on a harsh jet, and yeah, I can just with my thumb control the pressure and get in there, and I can get into the back ones, and I can generally hit most plants without getting them too wet at all. And this is how I go about watering my plants. So you can see there's a plant right there that would be very hard to get. And here's one just off camera. They can get tricky. Let's see. So that one's pretty easy there. There's a cattleya at the back, and I can aim my little gun and I hit a leaf, but for the most part I just hit the pot. And so nothing's going to drip down below. If we look up a little bit more, sorry about the backlighting and the lights and everything. These guys just came out of their winter rest here, so they've had one drink of water, but they can use another. So we water that, and then by increasing my jet just slightly, I can hit a little bit further back, and it's almost like doing trick shots. The lights just went out for the afternoon because my lights don't stay on all day long, just for the mornings. But I can generally, depending on where I am trying to go with my jet of water here, I can make the shot pretty good. And it is harder on camera, trust me. But I can get in between, like, you see the big angraecum right there? There's a plant behind it. Well, I'm now hitting the plant behind it without hitting the angraecum. This right here, that's the scarcochylus. I can hit the angraecum through the scarcochylus without getting too much water anywhere. And yeah, I'm able to kind of just do trick shots like this and get where I need to go with the water. So let's take you into a different spot here. And like I said, there's no water dripping down below, so it makes it nice and easy. Even if I was to overwater this, I'm not getting my leaves very wet. And I also don't do this at night. And I don't do this on cloudy days. I make sure it's nice and warm in here. If I do have to do it on a cloudy day, I will turn up the heat and turn up the fans. There's always moving air in here anyways. You can't even see this pot that I'm hitting right now. That is in the very front corner. And there is another clay pot that you can't even see. Let's see if I can see it. It is 3 pots back. Let's see, right in there at the very front of the greenhouse. Let's see if I can hit that sucker on camera. So, not bad. Not bad, especially considering I'm filming at the same time here. Got to give me a little credit for that too. You can see some water dripping off. Ooh, if I can loosen the tripod, there goes the water. It's missing everything. It's hitting that leaf on the Dutchman's pipe. We'll go back to watering just a little bit more. So there's one, and up above. Oh, you missed it. Up above right there. There's another. And another. So, for the most part, I'm pretty good at missing the leaves on these plants. I think I just bumped the microphone. Sorry about that. Keep in mind a little bit of water is not going to hurt, right? Even with a watering can, you got to have some. So this is just a nice lukewarm jet of water on my orchids. And yeah, when you're not filming, it's actually even easier. I have better results. But I can do that and get through. And it only takes me a few minutes to get all of them. You can see it's getting brighter. The sun's coming out. Let me zoom you back out here. And there we go. So nothing really drips. It's nice that way that I can do this. And of course, water drips off, and it's going to hit certain leaves on the way down from plants sticking out and everything. It's not a sure thing, but if I showered that shelf and the vinyl wasn't there, I would have just soaked the leaves on all my plants. So I'm now completely twisted in my mic cord and kicking my feet to try to free myself to put the hose away without pulling the camera over. Oh, and the sun just came out. Now it's like super bright. Oh, I love it. It's going to get hot in here fast. So anyways, that is how I water my orchids in the wintertime. I'm going to turn all the fans back on in here, make sure there's good air circulation. Again, do it in the AM when you know it's going to be a nice day out, so they all dry by the PM. And yeah, totally different watering than in the summertime. Although in the summer I still don't like to spray my leaves overly much. I really like this system here where it keeps these ones down below completely dry, right? Didn't matter how much I watered up here, these plants are not getting wet. And it also works very well for the lights I have in here for the winter time. But that again is my watering for the winter of orchids and carnivorous plants. I do the same thing with my nepenthes. I tend to put my finger in each pot before I water, and then to sort of get an idea how it is, and then re-water just before they're starting to approach dryness. I don't keep them soaking wet, and I don't keep them totally dry. I hope you liked this video, and if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel.